On this episode of Locked On Angels, Corbin Burnes signs with another team, not with a halo. So what's next? Are they going to run with the guys that they got? And if so, are they asking a bit too much of those guys? Let's talk about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe on YouTube. Become a Locked On Everydayer. We're hoping to get to 10K by opening day. Would love for you to help us out. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
What? If you guys are listening on the audio side, Mike, are your Christmas decorations already down?
Oh, yeah. We're done, dude. It's over. It's gone.
You get your stuff up like the first week in November, and then like, what, a day later, it's all down?
Yeah, we're sitting around. You don't know what day it is. That in between time, I'm not working, all of that stuff. We were sitting around yesterday and went, let's take it down. And so we did. So it's cleaned up, baby. We're ready for the new year.
I love that. Hey, we are here 5 days a week, normally talking Angels baseball. Right now, during the offseason, we're down to 3 days a week, but we do have some in-between content for you on Thursday and Tuesday. So we'll have something for you tomorrow between our regular full episodes. We'll ramp back up to 5 days a week for full episodes of Locked On Angels every single weekday, right when pitchers and catchers report to spring training, which will be here before we know it. So it's a good thing you got those Christmas decorations down, Mike, because you don't want those up when pitchers and catchers.
I got all my bobbleheads up now. I'm putting all my Angel gear up. We're getting ready.
There you go. Exactly. Hey, on today's show, what would the Angels have had to have given up if they wanted to trade for Jesus Luzardo, who ended up going from the Marlins to the Phillies? Mike Trout posted a Christmas photo over last week, and it got all of us talking. And Corbin Burnes will not be an Angel, Mike. He is headed to Arizona to be with the Diamondbacks. Part of that is he's already in Arizona, right, Mike?
Right. Yeah. $210 million over 6 years. He's got an opt-out, Johnny, after the first 2 years. So before year 3, he can get out of there if he needs to. John, it's $35 million a year. Now, he does live in Arizona, and the rumor was that he turned down some other large offers so that he could be close to home. Somebody said if the Toronto Blue Jays could make, hey, we're in the conversation into World Series trophies, they would be ahead of the Yankees in World Series trophies because they were a part of the conversation with Corbin Burnes, as were some other teams. John, this seems like a reasonable deal that perhaps the Halos could have offered. You and I talked about a $30 to $35 million deal, but here's the truth, and I'd love your thoughts. I don't know if I really thought that Burnes was coming here, and it didn't seem like Burnes was coming here, even though there were some conversations about, being connected to SoCal and favorite team growing up, Jared Weaver, his favorite pitcher, those types of things, but didn't really feel like he was coming here. Where were you on the 1 to 10 scale, thinking that maybe perhaps the Angels were in the running for Corbin Burnes?
For me, it was a 5. I mean, I didn't think it would happen. Every time we spoke about it here on the show, it was, this should happen. The Angels should get this done, and they should make it happen. And the reason why, over the weekend, we talked about it on Twitter, said this is a very doable deal. And $35 million a year, 6 years, with an opt-out after 2, is a very reasonable deal for somebody like Corbin Burnes, because you're not committed to 10 years, which we all thought was probably going to be around what he gets. And he gets the opt-out. He gets the choice of, hey, this isn't going too well. I think I'm going to bow out. And look, the Diamondbacks were in the World Series last year, right? And their biggest struggle this year was their pitching staff. They had a lot of injuries. They dealt with a lot of issues. They've got to add to that. And so they certainly did that with Corbin Burnes. But $35 million a year for a pitcher of his caliber is not an issue. What is an issue is what the Angels are unwilling to do. That's put opt-outs into their contracts, and also they're unwilling to pay this much for a starting pitcher. So don't get it twisted. And it cracked me up because everyone on Twitter was responding, well, this isn't doable for the Angels. The Angels wouldn't do this. Right. The Angels wouldn't do this. But that's the problem, is that this is a perfectly doable, reasonable deal. It's not a ton of years. Everybody gets what they want. And Corbin Burnes is like, you know what? This isn't going so great. I can get out of here after year 2. This is a great deal all around. And it's great for the Diamondbacks, and it's great for Corbin Burnes. I also saw that his wife just had twins. And as a new dad myself, I understand why he would want to be local to help out his wife. And I've only got one baby, Mike. So having twins, I can't imagine what that's like for a pitcher on the road half the time. But all of that to say, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying the Angels could have, should have, would have. I'm saying that this is a doable deal that they should have been in on and should have been able to do. Now, the tax situation in Arizona is also different. So the Angels probably would have had to have gone like $40 million to offset that because of the state taxes. But I'm not saying that the Angels were in on him or able to do this. But if they want to compete for high caliber free agents, then they need to, and this won't change until Artie Moreno is gone. They need to consider opt-outs. They need to consider deferrals, because as much as we might all hate talking about it or hate it, this is the way of the world. This is the where it's going. And opt-outs are a thing that players want. Deferrals are a thing that players will want. And that's the way that free agency is going until we get to 2026 and we all get together for the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement between the Players Association and MLB owners. This is the way of the world. And unless something drastically changes, this should have been a very doable deal for the Angels in terms of what they are able to do. A small market team did this, Mike.
Yeah.
Not a large market team like the Angels. And I'm actually kind of glad that he's with the Diamondbacks. Number one, he's out of the AL.
Right.
2, I think it's pretty cool that a team like the Diamondbacks got Corbin Burnes and not the Dodgers or not the Yankees or anything like that. I think that this is, it makes baseball more interesting.
Yeah. Now, okay. So it's December 30th and we're looking at the Halos starting staff. John, it looks like they're going to run with Kikuchi, Anderson, Soriano, Hendricks, and then a combination of Detmers or Jack Kahanowitz, or maybe both of them, if they don't make any more pitching moves. Now, I know it's December 30th and that January still comes and there's still opportunity to make trades, things like that. But here's what you're relying upon. You're going to rely upon Kikuchi, who is older, but John, he's been the most consistent starter, at least in the Angels rotation, and in baseball the last few years. He's averaged 26 starts a season the last 6 years, and that includes the COVID year, so that drops his number a bit. He's averaged 134 innings pitched in the last 6 years, including the COVID year. Johnny had 175 last year and 167 the year before. He had a 1.3 whip, his average last 6 seasons. Then there's Tyler Anderson. He pitched at least 140 innings the last 4 years, career high 179 last year. He had an ERA 3.18, which is the third lowest of his career. And he's averaged 3.81. Yep, there dyslexia. And then he's averaged 28 starts the last 3 years. Of course, there's Jose Soriano, 20 starts last year, 113 innings pitched, 1.2 whip. He had a 20.7 K rate, a 9.6 walk percentage. Kyle Hendricks is here. He's had at least 130 innings in 3 of the last 4 years. Here's what he's done best. His 7.6 walk percentage last year, over 60% of the time he's throwing first pitch strikes. Then, of course, Reed Detmers, career high 27.9 K percentage last year in 22, and in 23 he started at least 25 games. Still young, 25 years old as he enters this season. And then Jack Kahanowitz got a chance last year. John, he was in the 94th percentile in ground balls last season. And get this, had a 3.8 walk percentage with a 1.9 whip. So those are just some of the highlighted numbers of those players. I know that there's details in there that are frustrating, details in there that are not great, which is why I want to ask you this question. If they potentially don't add any more to the starting rotation, are the Halos asking this team, these 5 to 6 guys, to do what they were asking last year's starting rotation to do? And that is pitch way above their heads to try to compete so that we can get to the playoffs. This year, obviously, they've made some back end of the of the roster moves to help fill out some things, which were good moves. Kikuchi was probably the best move out of all of that. That's more of a top end. Are they asking this starting 5, starting 6 to play way above their heads? And is it a sign that as Angel fans, we don't have much confidence in these young pitchers like the Halos organization seems to have?
Well, but look who's in this rotation. You have Kikuchi, Anderson, and Hendricks. Mike, this isn't a case of, can they do this? I don't know. We've never seen it before. They are career guys.
Yeah.
Last year, we're asking Patrick Sandoval and Reed Detmers to do things that they've never done before.
Yeah.
And I say this a lot. 180 innings is the new 200, right? Mm-hmm. When you feel like, 200 innings, let's go. That's about where 180 is now, just because of the way the game has changed and whatnot. And so when you have somebody like Kikuchi and Tyler Anderson and even Kyle Hendricks able to put in the work that they do, whether it's good or not, I think Kikuchi's going to be good. I think Anderson, can be hit or miss. We'll see what happens there. And Kyle Hendricks they're really counting on a bounce back from him. So that's taking a gamble. But I don't think that it's a matter of, man, we really hope these guys can play above their pay grade. I don't see it that way. These guys have a track record. Yeah, they're not as good as they used to be, excluding Kikuchi, right? I'm talking more about like Kyle Hendricks, right? But they've been there before. They've done things in the past, including eating the innings that they need to eat in order to carry a starting rotation and at least put in the work that a starting rotation needs to put up to get a team through 162 games. This feels way different than last year because, again, we're talking about Griffin Canning and Detmers and Patrick Sandoval, none of which whoever hit 180 innings in their career, let alone 200, right?
Right.
And so I think this is a much different situation. Also, I don't want to call you out, but Kohanowitz, you said 1.9 whip, which is terrible. 1.19 whip. I just want to make that clear, especially on the audio side.
It's in between Christmas and New Year's. I'm having a tough time. Okay, so you brought up Patrick Sandoval. This doesn't have to do with the topic that we're talking about, but you brought him up. I was reading some of the comments about Sandoval with the Red Sox fans commenting, and I saw over and over and over again, if we get WBC Sandy, man, he's going to be great. Listen, Red Sox fans, don't buy the lie. Okay, you can continue.
Look, you know what? They're right. If they get WBC Sandy, then it'll be great. And we've been wanting that for the last 2.5 years. So
right.
Good luck to you, Red Sox fans. So all that to say, look, Soriano had a great year, Mike. 113 innings pitched.
Yeah.
He's a guy who stepped up.
Yeah.
Right. Detmers is the biggest question mark here.
Right.
How is he going to come into the season? Is he going to have the mental blocks out of the way? Is somebody going to teach him to get out of his own way and pitch really well? And you mentioned it the other day. Perhaps if he's like the number 5 starter, there's a little less pressure on that number 5 spot. And last year he's SP1, SP2.
Yeah.
He should have been to start the season. And so to dial that back a little bit on Reed Detmers, I think would be a very good thing. Look, we cannot go wrong with adding another starting pitcher, Jack Flaherty, whatever you want to say. However, coming into this season with these guys, I think it's much different than last year in terms of we're asking these guys to pitch way above their pay grade because these guys, three out of the 5 have a track record.
Yeah.
And Soriano is somebody that wasn't even a consideration for the rotation last year. So he wasn't even a question of, well, can he do it? And so now we have a little bit of a sample size for him. He's just got to stay healthy.
Yep.
And performance-wise, he's fantastic. Kohanowitz, we'll see what happens with him, but he's been fantastic in the window that he appeared in last year as well. So I don't think that this is a repeat. I am looking forward to seeing what these guys can do. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on the show, if the Halos had traded for Jesus Luzardo, what would they have had to have given up? And should the Halos have given that up? Well, we were kind of wondering, were the Angels even in on this?
Right.
So he ended up with the Phillies. It's too little too late, but I think it's a good question to ask, and we'll talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. They're going to help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice. It happens. It happens to John. It happens to me. It may happen to you. They help monitor your spending, and it helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place. John, I'm a huge fan of clarity brings calm when it comes to resource, and Rocket Money is really good at helping with that, whether it's subscriptions, maybe your spending habits, or even the goals you want to set for 2025. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions. That's a lot of money. And they're saving an average member $740 a year when you're using all of the app's premium features. Plus, they have a goals feature where you're able to automatically set money aside for your future. No more stressing about budget every single month. So cancel those unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster in 2025 with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. One more time, rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. We're so glad you decided to be here with us. And again, it's that weird conglomeration of time between Christmas and New Year's. So we're glad you're spending time with us here.
I can't read numbers correctly.
We're glad you're spending time with us here on this Monday. Hey, so the Phillies dealt to the Marlins for Jesus Luzardo, starting pitcher. Used to be an A, Mike. He actually was somebody that my buddy, who's a big A's fan, well, used to be, was looking forward to seeing come up with the team, and then he got traded to the Marlins in that Starling Marte trade, if I recall correctly, because the A's were trying to go for it, and so they brought him in. However, if the Halos don't sign another starter, perhaps a trade makes sense.
Yeah.
They can clear the salary and get someone who can make this rotation better. A name that was out there, again, was Luzardo. He was a Marlins pitcher, 27 years old, only had 12 starts last season. Not too impressive in terms of numbers, but the potential has always been there for him. A 29% whiff rate last season, getting a lot of swings and misses. He's come up as a potential trade target, not just this year for the Angels, but in years past. We've all kind of been like, hey, what about Jesus Luzardo? Sometimes Edward Cabrera, too, who's also a Marlin, had come up in the past. But the Phillies ended up getting Luzardo. They had to trade away prospect infielder Starlin Caba and outfielder Amarian Boyd for Luzardo. According to MLB.com, Caba has a great glove. He's a switch-hitting shortstop, just 19 years old. Makes a ton of contact from both sides of the plate. You like that from a switch hitter. Plus speed, outstanding range, soft hands, excellent footwork, above average arm strength, and a good internal clock at shortstop. He's the kind of guy you want keeping time for you in the band playing drum. Now, he does earn some comparisons to Francisco Lindor, which is that's who you want to be compared to at shortstop. He was the Phillies' third ranked prospect in their system, and now he will be with the Marlins. Great move, I think, for the Marlins there. And it doesn't end there, right, Mike?
Yeah, Boyd is 21. He batted .239 last season, 13 doubles, 5 triples, had 3 home runs and 40 RBIs, 27 stolen bases in 96 games with high A Jersey Shore. He's an outfielder, Johnny, and he's not as highly rated, of course, as Caba, and doesn't have great comparisons, still developing, still growing. But he was the Phillies' number 14th overall prospect. Now, here's why this is relevant to the Angels. If the Angels made this trade, they would have had to given up their 3rd overall prospect and their 14th overall prospect. And those are, 1, George Clausen, who's number 3, and Felix Morabel, who's number 14. Now, Clausen had a great 2024. He was the guy that they got in the trade for Estevez, along with Sam Altughiri. He was 6-5, had a 3.10 ERA, 22 starts, 93 innings pitched, 135 strikeouts in those 93 innings, and a 1.18 whip. And then Morabel, Johnny, is a guy who's still growing, still developing, 19 years old. He's a shortstop in rookie ball. He had a 308 batting average, 400 on base, 327 slugging, and a 727 OPS. That was just in 15 games and 52 at-bats. The year before is probably more of who he is right now. 286 batting average, 322 on base, a 335 slugging, and a 657 OPS. Again, young, still developing. Now, this name, Jesus Luzardo, has been out there. You and I were like, I wonder if the Angels were even aware that this trade was possible, right? And then when I saw the trade go through, I did some research and wanted to find out, like, who would that have to be in the Angels organization, right? And so those two names, Morbell and Clausen, would have been traded if it was a trade with the Marlins. There was a minor league catcher that also went to the Phillies as well. John, would you, if you're the Angels, would you have made this trade? Should the Angels even consider trading away somebody like a George Clausen to get somebody for the starting rotation right now?
Yeah, it's interesting that they went with Luzardo because he's had some injury issues over the last couple of years. I was listening to Rates and Barrels, which is an athletic podcast, and they were talking about how, the stuff plus on his fastball has come down over the years, whether that's him just not keeping up with where he was, or perhaps injuries have cost him some of the movement and the nastiness on his fastball. Mike, I look at the comps here, and you might be listening or watching and go, well, the Angels' third-ranked prospect and the Phillies' third-ranked prospect might not match up because the Phillies have a better overall system. And you might say that about number 14 in the Phillies and the Angel system as well. However, considering that Clausen is number 3 and Morbell is number 14, I actually think that it's pretty comparable. You get a young shortstop, just like Caba, who, Caba's the third ranked prospect in the Philly system now with the Marlins.
Yeah.
Morbell is 14th, but comparable guys there in terms of shortstop. And now Morbell's not going to get the Lindor comp.
Sure.
But then the big kicker for me is the value of George Clausen, again, who we just got from the the Phillies system. So to me, I don't know if I would make that trade. I don't think I would want the Angels to be in a place where they're finally building up some starting pitching behind the guys that they have and give that away the next minute. And Clausen, I think, is a huge part of that. Now we're going to have to wait and see how things shake out for him in the Angel system and where he ends up, AA, AAA, what have you. But at the same time, the Angels are finally in a place where they have a good problem. We talk about it all the time, Detmers or Kohanowitz in this rotation.
Mm-hmm.
What about Aldegiri? What about Clausen? What about this guy, that guy? And that's such a great problem to have because we have not had that problem in a very, very long time. So if I were the Angels, I don't think that I would make this trade simply because Luzardo is older. 27 is not old, but it's not a prospect level guy, right? At the same time, I just think you don't want to cost yourself what the stockpile that you're starting to build up. Maybe this would have been a better trade in 2026 when the Angels are a little bit closer to a competitive window where all their young guys have had another year of growth and that sort of thing. But right now, I don't think that they need to be making any moves to cost themselves their future, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think this is the tension that a lot of Angel fans are riding is they want to see this team improve because there's been talk about, hey, we're going to go after the playoffs, but we also don't want to sacrifice the future, which is why the window of success is really 2026 and not 2025, because the window of success in 26 means that you've got another year of Kohanowitz developing, another year of Clausen, Aldegiri, Dana, Bachman, Silseth. I mean, all of these guys are going to get another year under their belt. And that's a good thing for this team that they haven't had in years past. And so that's the tension the Angels have to ride. Also, these are guys that they either drafted or they traded for. And if they sign Corbin Burnes, they're going to have to get rid of one of their picks. And so that's why they stayed away from Burnes, and maybe why it makes more sense if they're going to go get a good arm, get Jack Flaherty. I know you're shaking your head at me. I'm
shaking my head because that's not why they stayed away from Corbin. Come on, Michael.
But I'm thinking through the lens of a Perry Manassian and maybe not a Artie Moreno. And I think Perry is more of a guy who's analytical and he's trying to work this in the system that he has been given, in the sandbox that he has been given. And I think that he's looking at the future and what he can bring into this team from the future. And it's not going to happen if you're having to sign guys that get rid of draft picks. And so it makes sense why the Angels may not sign that big right-hander, that big left-hander like a Corbin Burnes, But it doesn't make sense if they don't go after somebody like a Flaherty who doesn't have a compensatory pick connected to him, and you don't lose anything. This just, when I see these guys and I see what they have in the minor leagues and I see the potential of certain trades, it just makes more sense why the Angels would trade out of a plethora of people rather than a stockpile of really great arms. And what I mean by that is it makes more sense if they try to trade away like a Taylor Ward, maybe a Luis Rengifo. But I think Taylor Ward makes more sense because then he's a major league player who can really help a team and perhaps you can get something back. However, if you trade Taylor Ward to a team that he's potentially going to help, they're probably not going to give you an arm from their rotation so that you can be better as well. Unless it's a team like maybe that's barely on the cusp, like we are barely on the like the Reds or something like that, where, hey, if this happens for them, that would be a benefit. And if this happens for us, that would be a benefit. A Brandon Marsh, Logan O'Hoppe sort of trade, but they're both on the major league roster, right?
Yeah, the Marlins are just in a position where they can do this sort of thing. And if you think about it, the Angels are kind of also in that position. I mean, look, Jesus Luzardo, I have liked him in the past. I am hoping that Reed Detmers gets better. But if you think about it, by the time Reed Detmers is 27, maybe the Angels make a similar trade like this, which would be in 2 years. Hopefully they don't have to do that, but it is, reasonable for the Marlins to look around and go, you know what, this feels like something that we need to do, feels like something that we need to take care of. So good on them for doing it. But again, I don't think that this is a move that I would make if I were the Angels.
Johnny, I saw a picture of my favorite Angel, and that is Mike Trout.
We all saw Mike.
We all Christmas time.
Saw him.
and I have to say, love the pictures with his kids and with his wife in front of his house. Merry Christmas. But there was something that I noticed that every Angel fan noticed. And Mike Trout has a little beard. No, I'm kidding. What we saw was a more lean Mike Trout than a built Mike Trout. And what I mean by that is that it seems like the muscle mass that he's had the last few years isn't as evident as it has been in the last few years. And if you're watching on the video or on the video side, you can see the picture that we put up on the auto side. We have a picture of Mike Trout. Come over and take a look at it. John, he looks like Trout when he first came up. He's got that lean and mean sort of body. And that's the Mike Trout that stole bases, was hustling around the bags, was leaping over walls in Baltimore. John, this is something that you specifically first brought up on Locked On Angels, that if Trouty could maybe lose a bit of the muscle mass, not necessarily like lose weight, but maybe muscle mass and be more lean and quick, that actually would be beneficial for his body. And all indications are he listened to you. So congratulations.
He's an everydayer. I knew it. Thanks, Mike. Mike Trout, baby. Mike, far be it from me to make a comment on anybody's appearance or body type or anything like that. So This is not a criticism whatsoever. But what I am saying is he is far less beefy than he's been. And not to say that he was overweight or anything like that. Right. He was really muscular and really big. And I think that's why he's had a lot of the issues that he's had over the last couple of years. The wear and tear on his body comes from carrying a lot of muscle mass. And so for what the last 2, maybe 3 years since we started doing Locked On Angels over here, we've been asking, like, can somebody have him trimmed down? Again, not fat or anything like that, but like drop some of that muscle weight, don't do heavy reps, do a ton of light reps, right? Like work up the muscle strength rather than the muscle mass. And I think that's what's happened here. Yeah. And I think it's really exciting for Angel fans to know that, hey, somebody talked to him and went, hey, dude, you want to be healthy this season? Here's what you need to do over the off season. And look, whether this makes a difference, it remains to be seen. But for me, the victory here is at least something different has been done this offseason. And that is that somebody somewhere, whether it was his own doctor or physical trainer or physical therapist or what have you, told him, drop that muscle mass, dude, because the leaner you are, the less wear and tear on your body. And so maybe that's why they really haven't said like he's out of center field yet, because maybe there's still a chance that he does play center field. There's a lot of questions about the outfield. You mentioned Taylor Ward earlier and how he might be somebody that the Angels deal. We TBD on that.
Yeah.
However, I think at this point, it's reasonable to believe that this is going to be the step in the right direction for Mike Trout, because he's been that beefy guy the last 5 years, Mike.
Yeah.
And like you said, getting back to 2013, 2014 Trout is the guy I want to see. I want to see him hit for average. I want to see he's still going to hit 35, 40 home runs.
Sure.
He might steal some bases and actually be able to do it and feel good about it. And he might play a dang good center field and rob a home run in Baltimore again, right?
Right. And this might be the key to his success for that strike in the higher part of the zone.
True.
You strike him out every time you throw that pitch.
You can't swing a bat like this when you're an action figure.
He's huge. He's massive. His arms are huge.
Yeah,
he's huge. And so having him be this size, I think, could be a benefit. And even if he doesn't get to 30 home runs, John, if he adds 25 home runs and knocks in 100 and hits close to 300, that's a huge bat in this lineup that the Angels have been lacking for, well, since Mike Trout has been hurt, right?
Yeah, exactly. So all that to say, this feels like a really good step in the right direction. It's so great to see the Angels doing something different, and I'm so glad that we have a leaner and meaner Mike Trout. They'll say best shape of his life, and actually mean it this time, right?
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. He's bringing you a blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor this offseason. Find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube, get in the comments section, hit that like button, and whether you're a watcher or a listener on the audio side, hit that subscribe button because we want 10K by opening day on YouTube. It really helps out our channel a whole bunch. Mike, what do we have on deck when we come back on Wednesday show?
John, we could potentially know where Hae-Sung Kim is signing. There's a lot of story, a lot of rumor about him. So we're going to bring all of that on Wednesday, and we're hoping that maybe that he's an Angel by Wednesday. If not, we'll talk about what's been going on and what he could add to this team. Join us on Wednesday for Locked On Angels.
You know, somebody called Travis d'Arnaud signing with the Angels, and I also wanted Hae-Sung Kim. So
call it right now.
Let's call it. Hae-Sung will be a Halo. Let's go. All right, friends, we hope you come back and join us on Wednesday. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
If we could just get WBC Sandy. You poor Red Sox fans. I'm so sorry.
I don't feel bad for them.